first off, how you doing today?
Great, man. Great, Tom.
All right. So how was your trip?
Great. I had an awesome time getting here. It was cool. Cool.
All right, man. So, I want to go back and talk a little bit about how you grew up in your childhood.
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. My father was a preacher before his passing in the AME church, and grew up in Flatbush area of New York City, which is a very interesting area because it had a lot of challenges back then in the 60s and 70s and, going into the 80s. But it was fairly good. It was fairly good. You learn a lot concerning the arts. A lot of the performers come out of Flatbush, Barbra Streisand, a lot of them. So it was a very interesting area where I grew up.
Okay, so you said you actually grew up in a church family, correct?
Yes, sir.
So how did because a lot was going on in New York. New York is probably one of my favorite places of all time. I really love New York. I love going there because there's so much culture, and it feels like that's one of the only places where you can see the world without actually being in the entire world. So how did you maintain just being in a church family with all of the stuff that happened, especially talking about 60s or 70s, 80s, and even early 90s? There was a lot going on. Hip hop, was booming. How did your family feel about that type of thing?
I was just thinking about Biggie, okay. But my family was pretty much even killed. Even though we had a church environment, my dad and my mom was pretty much easygoing. Not do what you want to do, but they wasn't hardcore, on you where you couldn't listen. I'm a musician also, Todd, so they didn't hold me back from listening to other music, because they know I could just hear some music and just play it, whether it was secular or gospel. So I didn't grow up in a house where they withheld that part from me because they knew my love for music. But, keeping a balance, I guess you just had to grow up in it and just, just keeping yourself around positive people and staying in the right environments and just knowing what and who to avoid really helped me a lot.
Now, see, I was going to say balance because a lot of times people who aren't into the church world, we assume that because you were, brought up in the church, that somehow you can't live like a normal life. It's almost like me. I'm a military brat.
Yeah.
So a lot of people that I met growing up that weren't military affiliated, they assumed I was on some base, doing drills and things of that nature. Where I was, I would explain to them that my mother probably did drills and things of that nature, but we lived a normal life. It just was on a military affiliated, schools and things of that nature. So, you were able to basically maintain the two and still live, a normal life. So how did you, become a bishop and get into that part of it?
Well, that came much later. During my lifetime, it actually started from being a musician, and then being able to draw a lot of young people my age and a little older and younger. So I grew up, doing my music and really into my music, and a lot of times, Todd, a lot of choir directors or musicians wind up being walking in that area of ministry because of, you would say, the influence that you have over people. They begin to trust you. They begin to confide in you and everything. And so those of us that, how you would say, quote unquote, yes to the call, it gets very interesting and intriguing because now you have a group of people that's willing to go where you go and listen to directions from you. And if you take it the right way and allow yourself for God to use you, I didn't ask to be a bishop. I didn't even ask to preach, but because I was working, with some artists and everything like that, and they had brought me back to New York because I had moved out of New York, and they brought me back to work on this project, and I worked on the project for a little while, and my dad had passed, but there were other pastors that had taken over our home church, and they asked me while I was supposed to be in New York working on the project, and they asked me to come, and I'm like, no. I said no 3 times, and I, after a while, I began to, see the pull and see the influence that I had over a lot of young people, because by this time I was now working in a junior high school, and I had a choir and all that kind of stuff with like 125 kids. So I had a lot of influence. So therefore, when I finally said yes to taking over my dad's church, I came in with a whole bunch of young people that, how you would say, that are now millennials, because they're now all of them in their 30s, late 30s, mid 30s. And someone saw the call, say they saw that after I got promoted or going into my dad's church, it was about a year or two afterwards, some of the bishops felt that I had great influence and had also the anointing to do this. And that's when they consecrated me as a bishop.
Okay, so what made you want to become an author?
I feel a lot of what we go through, Todd, is a lot of what we go through helps to build our story, and to build our experience helps to build the past, the present, and the future. So a lot of what we go through in our life, a lot of us could be authors. A lot of us could be authors if we just sit down and backtrack and think. I'm a thinker, but I'm also a writer. I love writing. I just love English. I just love all of that kind of stuff. And a publisher came to me and she said, "Why don't you just write a book?" And I'm like, "Oh, really?" I never thought. It took me 4 or 5 years to write one book, because I would put it down and busy doing other stuff and doing other things and back and forth, and finally just writing in my mind, and I'm taking it from a story in the Bible and then coinciding it with what I went through.
And it's called "I Made It on Broken Pieces"?
Yes, sir.
What does it mean to be made on broken pieces?
Well, biblically, in Acts the 28th chapter, it talks about a man named Paul. And I begin to compare my life to Paul's life, and our lives, or people's lives, to Paul's life. Paul, first of all, he wasn't a Christian. He wasn't a Christian. He was actually one of the assassinators of Christians. He used to kill Christians, and his life got turned around. I'm kind of on a level, Tyrone, as a cutting edge bishop. They call me, or what they call me, the hip hop bishop or whatever. But because I always use music in my sermons or when I talk, and I look at Paul, and Paul had an experience where he was just going down this road, and this is a biblical story. It's in the Bible. And he was going down the road, and they said in the Bible, it says that the Holy Spirit knocked him out. And when he got up under a new Paul. Well, his name was Saul. His name was even changed. And when he got up, he became a preacher now. So now Paul went from an assassinator or a killer of the Christians to now a Christian, a leader of the Christians. He went from that area of preaching and up until the point where his preaching got him imprisoned, because many were saying what he was preaching was false doctrine, was saying all kind of stuff, like really trying to kill his character, like it happens with us. And they imprisoned him. And in Acts 28, he's in this prison, but he's still ministering. He's still sending out letters to the different churches and different people, sending out letters of instruction, letters of correction, letters of encouragement, edifying, exalting, building up people, even while he's in prison. But this particular story starts where Paul is in this prison, and the Bible says that the prison was kind of overloaded, so they're taking the prisoners out to move them to Italy, or Melita first, and then going to Italy to bring them to a bigger facility. This is how, when I read the Bible, I get all of this like a story, so that's how I like to tell it like that. But and this is where I, again, step by step in the book, I compare our lives to Paul. I compare our lives to us being changed, not being religious, but being changed by the renewing of our mindset. So Paul's life was changed. 1 minute you can be in one place, and the next minute you can be in another place, all through the hands of God. And a lot of people don't like to say this, but I do believe that God can change anybody. I do believe that God can use anybody. I do believe that it's not a religion, it's a relationship for all of us. I don't believe in judging. I don't believe in judging people for where they are or what they're dealing with, because we all have issues. We've all come from somewhere and still dealing with stuff. So I compare Paul's life from that point into the point where he's now in prison, and he's forced to deal with people that's not on his level. And that's for a lot of us preachers, to think that everyone that we deal with has to be in church. No, that's not what our mission is supposed to be. He is forced to deal with prisoners. He is new to all of this because now he's in a prison with killers, rapists, everything, and he's forced to actually deal one-on-one with these people. And what many of us would say, oh, they're not on my level. These are killers. I'm not a killer. These are rapists. I'm not a rapist. And we're easy to compare our lives to people that have not been where we've been. So basically, that's how I start going into the book about Paul.
Right. And now, 2019, we're in the social media era, and you talked about character assassination. That is probably one of the biggest things going on right now with the internet, because anytime someone finds out, especially when it comes to celebrities and things of that nature, anytime you can find some information on somebody that they did 20, 30 years ago, and their career can be ruined today. So how do you feel about that? And especially being someone who could be looked at as, anything that you can do wrong could be scrutinized.
I just feel it's a dangerous thing, man. It's just, it's pitiful. But I find out that you develop secret haters, people that you may not even, and it's sad to say, a lot of the people that helps to kill off those that have per se made it or making it winds up from people that they were close to or close to. And it just comes from minor disagreements, major disagreements, people not getting their way. And so a lot of times they retaliate. And retaliation is a very harsh thing, because when that's, I call it, when that spirit gets on that person and they're actually at a place where they are out to get you, to hurt you by any means necessary. Unfortunately, social media has become that avenue to try to assassinate. Here we go again, assassinate the character of people. That's why I always say, try your best to keep a good character, especially being a preacher. And I say this to everywhere I go. Don't let your preaching take you where your character can't keep you. Because a lot of times people, they can preach, they can do a good hoop and give a good message, but their character is toe up. So the character part is the part that we need to work on, because this is what's behind the closed doors, or in private settings, or so you have to do your best within yourself to keep that character pure, and being in the company of people. And I don't even want to say tithe. I don't even want to say trust no more, because again, like I said, we've trusted people, but the ones that want right close to you wind up being the ones that try to kill you. I'm talking about kill your character. So try your best to line up with people that understand your call and understand who you are.
And being a public figure, it's like you never want to put yourself out there as being too perfect, because as soon as someone finds any flaw, then it's problems from there.
Yeah.
What's the takeaway from the book?
What is what you said?
What's the takeaway? Like what?
You can make it through whatever you go through. Now, in the story, I got to go back to the story, because in their transition, like many of us have gone through, in their transition from that jail, remember I said it got overcrowded. So in that jail, from moving them with chains, the Bible says chains on the hand, foot, feet, chained, everything chained. In that transition of them getting on the boat, the Lord speaks to Paul and tells him that the boat is not going to make it. Paul gives this message to the King Agrippa, which was the centurion, which was the man in charge. He gives this message, yo, I'm sorry, that's how I talk. This boat is not going to make it, man. So the Bible says that all of them start laughing. Man, get out of here. Come on. They all start laughing. So I would think, because I would put myself in that position, I wouldn't even understand what the Lord meant by that, or what God meant by that. But, they all get on the boat. They loaded the boat up. But in the midst of their transition to get over to Italy, a storm broke out while they were on this boat. And I always tell people, I say, you saw Titanic, the whole transition of a sinking boat, or the whole traumatic dramatization of this whole thing, and I put people's mindset in. I asked them, get your mindset of being on this boat. And this storm comes, and it's a treacherous storm, to where they get paranoid. And the centurion, which is King Agrippa, the man in charge, he throws the anchor out in the middle of the sea, thinking that will stabilize them. And Paul jumps up and says, no, don't do that. Cut the rope and let it go. Cut the rope and let it go. That part right there, I focus on, because I always tell people, this is where God can use us to be able to let people go. I always use Frozen. Let it go, let it go. Cut the rope. Some people just got to cut it because you need to cut it. I always use that song, because a lot of times we're connected to the people, and we're trying to stabilize ourselves and being connected to them. And God is telling us, cut them, let them go, because some people are hurting us more than they're helping us. They cut the rope, but then the storm hits the boat, and if you study even more, it shows how the storm and everything got dark, black. They couldn't even see by now, and the whole boat falls apart. The whole boat just crumbles up, and it said in 28:42-44 that they started grabbing for the different boards and pieces of the boat to try to survive to get to land, and it says, some on boards and some on broken pieces of the ship, but they all escaped safe to land. That means that they all got there on a broken piece of the ship. So this is where I use what we've gone through. Peace of mind. Now, I'm not talking about P-E-A-C-E. I'm talking about P-I-E-C-E. A peace of mind where we've almost lost it. Or we wanted to throw in the towel, or we wanted to be done with life. It's a very, very, very crucial area that we're dealing with right now, not just in the church, but in the world, and that's suicide. People can camouflage what they're going through to where the point where now they're killing themselves. So my thing is, how do we deal with people that are dealing with broken pieces to try to help them to get safe, to a safe haven, to a safe place where they understand that it's worth living.
All right. Now, when does the book release?
Well, Todd, the book is now on the 10th year edition. So my book was written 10 years ago. So I'm just releasing it again as a 10th anniversary edition. In a couple of more months, I'm gonna bring back out the 10th anniversary, fresh cover, new cover, new everything, because the first 5,000 sold out. That was years ago, and God just led me to bring it back out because people need to hear it now.
Absolutely. I have a question in particular about you being from New York and the laws in New York. This Rikers Island, a lot of the controversy that's been going on up in New York, just with incarceration of young Black males and things of that nature. With everything that's going on right now with Trump and all of so there's always been racism around, but it seems like it's being more in light because now we have cameras. Now we're able to put stuff on social media. We're able to transfer this information. The role of the church, I often see there being a divide between church-going folk and then the more of the Black empowerment type crowd, the conscious community, if you say. There's always been a clash, and it's kind of like, what can we do because at the end of the day, we're all up under, this umbrella of white supremacy. So what can we do to kind of get things going to where we're both actually in this fight and pushing together versus people picking sides?
I think the church and how you would say the other communities have established a fear of one another, a fear of what we've been taught. If the church is afraid of political because of what we've been taught, when the church should really be going outside of the doors. The Bible says, pray for those that have rule over you. This is instruction. So that means a lot of times, everywhere you are, you have people that's over you on a job. You know what I'm saying? You have a landlord. It's somewhere, somebody is over us. But it instructs us to pray for those that rule over you, that we may live a peaceable life. But I think, let me speak from the church standpoint first. I think the church has so confided itself within the four walls. And I teach this all the time. Sometimes I get in trouble. I'm sorry, but I believe that we've confided ourselves in the four walls instead of doing what the word says, go out into the world, or go out into the hedges and the highways and compel people. And then the world, or how you would say other arenas, just have this outlook of the church because of some people that's put a bad taste in their mouth from what they've been raised to do. Religiosity, not relationship. So a lot of times you have the church divided within itself. So until the church comes together on one accord, in unity, no matter what the thing about it is, you have so many different, it's broken down into so many entities, and to where people not focusing on our one goal. You know what I'm saying? And so you have people that are different beliefs in different areas. Whereas if you have a political arena, we see our one goal. We're focused on that one goal. We don't care about what you're going through, what your lifestyle is, and all that kind of stuff. We just focusing on what we need to do to come together to get this done. So I think that's where the imbalance is. Because I think they've become afraid of each other. And instead of being like a magnet drawing, it's like a magnet when you turn it on the opposite side and you try to push it together, it breaks away because it doesn't magnetize because it's pushing against itself. So I feel that if we all come, well, prayerfully, we can all come on one accord, but I believe the church has been taught so much stuff, and so much religious things. Like I discussed with you something earlier, but and we put things in a box to where we're afraid of coming to a level of what we think people are not ready for. Like Paul, you know what I'm saying? God had to knock him out in order for him to wake up. I always use Beyonce's song, I Woke Up Like This, and become divided within itself rather than coming and unifying, where then once we're unified, then we can unify with every other area and not our beliefs.
Right. Now, my grandmother, she's been in the church heavily since before me, and growing up, I was in church with her a lot when my mother first joined the military. Mm-hmm. And so I was with her probably until I was about 6 years old, and we went to church all the time. But I remember, after I moved with my mother wasn't a churchgoer, but my grandmother back then, she used to always say, I can't save y'all. She would always encourage us to get into the church. And even today, it's like, I consider myself a pretty solid individual when it comes to the way I treat people and the way I want to be treated, and just trying to do the right thing. But I am not a person who goes to church. And my grandmother, I guess we've come to some, common ground in reference to that. But also we're a lot different because I'm growing up in this time where I'm being exposed to a lot that's going on versus her perspective, where it's like she comes from a whole different time period, and she's diehard into the church. So we have a lot of disagreements when it comes to, hey, there's a church on every corner in our neighborhoods, but we're still struggling, as a whole. So that's why I was talking about the difference between conscious community and then the church community, because at the end of the day, we're all hurting, and it's like, what can we do? Can you get out here and, hit these streets just like everybody else is doing? We all need to come together and make some things happen, because I'm going to pray for you. You could pray, but you still have to, faith without works is dead, correct? So I always, we have those discussions, because it's like, we have to actually do something. And also in the social media era, there's, I'm going to pray for this person, or I'm going to complain. But then people are out here, police is killing people every day, and, there's a lot going on to where we have to actually become active.
I do believe the church is in transition. And I said that to say, because now what we have, and I always preach about this, we have old school and we have millennials. Millennials, we have old school. We have old school millennials. The old school wanted to be like the old time way. The millennials just want the truth, and let's just deal with it from where I'm going from here. I know where I'm at. I know what I've done. I don't need to go through all of that y'all went through. I need to know, where am I going? How can you lead me? And so, unfortunately, a lot of the old time way don't know how to take the millennials into a futuristic walk of life in the gospel. We have more millennialized pastors. For example, I pastored my dad's church for 18 years, 17, 18 years. And up until the point of my son, I was closing out service, full church. I'm looking at people, and I heard the voice of God so clear: hand the baton over. And that said to me, you will not die with this mic in your hand. I turned the work over to my son, and I always said my son that God gave me, because he was a student at the school that I taught at. And I was able, here we go, Todd, just like you were saying, I was able to bring the church to him. Even though he didn't go to church, he was 12 years old, he was a drug dealer, blah, 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 blah. You know, and I was able through the choir to bring the church to him. So when I took over my dad's church, he was right with me at 12, 13 years old, 14 years old. He's now 37. And now the pastor. So I made him the pastor. But when I go there, I see the change and what the church needed. That I carried it for 18 years. So the church is 41 years old. 41 years old. I carried it for 18 years. That's as far as I could carry it, because now you have a whole new group of influx of millennials and people that want to be on social media and want to come in. And my son, he works all those millennials and social media outlets, but he's upgraded the church and just things to the now, where certain things I don't know, and I have to be honest. And I feel the old school always have to be honest with what we don't know. Just be honest and say, I don't know nothing about that. You teach me, But I feel that it got to the point where our way is the right way and there is no other way, and don't want to change.
That's a really big topic, because it's not just in the church. It's probably a little bit of everywhere amongst our community. Is the ones who are in power. Mm-hmm. They don't want to pass the baton over and to bringing in the new generation and kind of finishing that message and kind of adjusting and adapting to the times of today. Mm-hmm. Now, and also, I talked about everybody picking sides. Like, even as a millennial, at first I was in the category of millennial, but now they've given us a new title, because I am in that pocket that I'm not technically. My little sister's considered, she may be a millennial. She's 13 years younger than me. I'm 35. Mm-hmm. And I actually grew up where I came in on social media, but I also played outside. Mm-hmm. So my entire life wasn't based on social media, kind of like hers was. Right. So I'm like in between, and I can't remember the name of it, but they've given my age group a different name.
A whole nother name.
Yes, because we still had, rotary phones. We grew up on all of that stuff and moved over to where we didn't have social media and writing letters in class and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. Whereas kids today, everything is on their phone. So, we've seen both sides. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important for people in my age group to make some things happen. Hence, me saying what I said earlier. Yes. It's like it's our responsibility to kind of guide that, from the old school to the younger version. We're in the middle, and we can do a lot to kind of bridge those gaps. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm at with that. So moving forward, what do you have planned? Like, after the book release, what's next on your agenda?
Well, I'm at this time, I'm really digging into going back into my gifts, and I don't want to. The years that I pastored, I put a lot of the things that I love to do aside to build the ministry, and like my music, like my acting and all that kind of stuff. I put all that aside. To make sure that the church was built. And I was just thinking of Bishop T.D. Jakes with a sermon that he preached: if you can give it up, you can have it all. So it came a sacrifice. A sacrifice came with that, accepting that position. And now I'm really back into, I travel extensively, travel a lot, and preachers always ask, how do what do you do to get to 15 to 20 churches or 10 to 15 churches a month, every month? What do you do? I mean, how do you? I said, I don't know. It's word of mouth. I guess, again, like Todd, like I tell you, it's that character. it's that character, because a lot of times, most of the time, people know me by my character. And I feel that the preaching and stuff, all that comes later. But I feel that they know me, how the people look to see how you react after you done preached the house down and everybody done had a good time. Are you acting snooty? Are you nasty? Are you very, people look at that more than, you can kill the whole sermon with your character. So I'm pretty much focusing on, I don't mean to sound selfish, but sometimes we got to be on me, my gifts, talents, and abilities. Going into, I do with Central Casting in New York, so I do a lot of the little roles on the movies and television shows and stuff. So I'm really getting back into what I like to do. And also, like I said, traveling and ministering, public speaking, graduations, business meetings. I can go into every arena. I had one of my young people, one of the girls they grew up with in my school, and she's going on now because I got on her because she's just going to do regular. And she was going into high school, and I didn't allow that to happen, like to go to any old high school, because she was a singer. So now she has perfected her craft. Now she's about 34, 35, and she's one of the greatest opera singers in New York. They compare to Leontine Price and everything, because and I had her with me at a graduation because I brought her to sing. And she looked at all the, the big wigs, as we call them, the principals and the district leaders and all them kind of people. And she said to me, what are you going to do when you get up? So, because she never seen me in that arena. She said, what are you going to do when you get up? You're going to say, everybody put those hands together and give the Lord a praise. I said, no, I'm not going to say that. I said, that's not this arena. I can't get up and do that. And, she sat there and she was in amazement. And she had been with me from 13 years old too. And she said, I never seen, that happen. You switch up like that. She said, because now you're in a whole nother arena of the political area, the teachers, the principals, and you knew how to flow with all of them, and especially the graduates. So I had taken all their music and Watch Me Nay Nay and all that kind of stuff, and implied it, inserted it in the speech, which was able to, encourage the audience. So I'm into me, Ty, and I don't say that to me because years ago I would never say nothing like that, because we was taught, you whatever. But I'm into what God has for me, and what He's given me as a God gifted talents and abilities, gifts and talents. The Bible says your gifts will make room for you. So I believe that there's a lot of doors and a lot of rooms, like even being here with you. I believe that this is another door, another situation that God has put upon me to walk into now another area of my life what I love to do. I love it.
One thing I've learned about, especially when you're talking about music, is back in the day, like they had Christian rappers, and I grew up a big rap fan, hip hop fan. Christian rap wasn't really my thing because it was more of a, I used to be in the street type thing, and now I'm in the church. It was more of it seemed a little preachy back then, but now there are a lot of artists who are considered Christian rappers, but the music sounds extremely good and it doesn't make you feel like you're being preached to. It sounds just like everything else. You can play it back to back with some of this other music and it blends in well and it has a message and it's still very, very dope without putting them in that Christian box. So I think they've done a really, really good job because some of these cats, they really, really, they are dope on the mic. And like I said, you can't tell that it's that type of music. To even someone like my grandmother, she used to always say, I don't like Christian rap, but she's starting to hear certain songs that she likes. So things like that I just noticed, as I'm growing up and times are changing. So I think that's really cool. And, and Then you have, you know, the movies. You know, T.D. Jakes put out a couple movies that was really good, and you know, just different. I guess trying to merge the two worlds and make things go.
And I believe that that's, again, like I was saying about myself, I believe that that's areas where God has allowed you to do a certain thing for a certain time and then go back and pick up what you love to do when you have sacrificed. One of my other sons, he has an awesome church up in New Britain, Connecticut. And when I first met him, I ministered to him. I ministered to people one-on-one. And he was a 5%er. When I'm talking about, I ministered to him in a service. And, you know, so my ministry is for, especially for these young people. So I'm ministering to him, and I said, do you know who God is? And he answered me, he said, I'm God. I was like, oh God, Jesus. Yeah. And I'm like, what are we dealing with right here? So that it came to improve who I was then. And I ministered to him, and I said some things to him. And today he's a bishop. I made him a bishop. Today he's a bishop. He's a Christian rapper. That's what I thought about him. And his Ra, we call him. And he's his rapping is, he goes in secular arenas, their battles and stuff like that. But he doesn't, like you say, he doesn't do that tearing down, or, you know, we in the church and you in the world and all that kind of stuff. No. When he finished, he has like 10 rappers that came to his church the next Sunday. Like, yo, you really cool, man. You know, and he don't portray to be all of that. And, you know, I'm high and mighty and you there. No, but he's able to draw them through his Christian rap and his freestyling. I love to hear him freestyle. His freestyling, just boom, boom, boom. Let's talk about the rub, pop. You know, he just pick up something and just go. And I'm like, boy, how you do that? He's like, you know, it's just come natural. So it's what I love to do. So he's got a brand new building, brand new church. So what he loved to do is his music and his rap. So he done built a whole studio in his church. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, trying to balance both worlds, you know, but he had to go through years of sacrifice and put down his gifts and put down everything he loved to do to now be able, he's coming back full circle and picking it up at another level. Him, his ministry and everything is at another level, and where he's now able to go back into what he loves to do.
And I think that the big thing is, you know, being that the world is so big, it's kind of like, I think that people should respect each other's, you know, beliefs. And I'm not necessarily, you know, because everybody believes something different. Like, you know, people across these waters, they believe something completely different. But I think we all can coexist without feeling like someone is the enemy because they don't believe the same things we do. You know, now that's what's happening. Another thing with social media is like everybody's picking sides, but at the end of the day, we're all fighting and we're not getting any progress. You know, it's still a lot going on. There's still a bunch of poverty in the Black community. Right. A lot of things that need to be fixed that we can't fix it unless we start to talk with each other and get things going on that end.
And I believe we all need to take a piece of what we all know from each other. Instead of tearing down, I believe that everybody has something to offer. You know what I'm saying? Like certain, okay, I'm going to say this, Jehovah's Witness. There's something that they have that we don't have. And that's learning how to get up and go knock on some doors or go out into the hedges and the highway. You know what I'm saying? Us as believers or Christians, we ain't getting up. I want to say that some of the people, they do it. Right. But Jehovah's Witnesses, they're dedicated. They're committed. They're doing it. This is what they're taught. This is what they're dedicated to it. I mean, I feel every area has something that we all, like you said, if we all come together and take a piece from here. I want the dedication. I want the commitment like the Jehovah's Witness. I want to be able to get up and go out and just walk. Half of people, we scared to go out there and hi, how are you? Good morning. Talking to people and all kinds of stuff. And I do believe that each part, each area, again, in the Christendom, you have faith teachers, you have deliverance teachers, you have financial teachers. They call them the money preachers. So you have different areas, but I don't believe we should tear each other down because you don't believe in the money thing. I don't think you should tear the other one down because they believe they have a faith teaching. So I feel that we should take a piece and, like you said again, we all come together. I feel the Muslims have something to offer us, and we have something to offer them. I feel that all of us, whatever area, if we stop judging, man, if we stop judging and competing and bickering, and like you said, the whole thing, you stop competing and bickering and always think that what we say is right. And we don't have to be right all the time. We don't have to be right. Admit when you're wrong. Admit that I'm able to now, like you said, your grandmother, able to listen to some rap music and say, oh, okay, I like that. Because that's the point of her where she's learned to accept what she thought she would never be able to go. But because, of your witness and because of, you're not willing to bend in certain areas and saying, this is what I like, then that's able for her to now say, okay, well, let me hear it.
I like to live my life in a way to where I'm able, like you just mentioned, pull from anybody that I talk to. We don't always agree on everything, but the goal is to grab all of the good information that I feel is useful to my life and pull from that to where I don't have to get mad at you for believing certain, something in particular that I don't agree with. It's like, let me grab the good and then keep it moving, yes. Because at the end of the day, you're still bringing in all good information from different perspectives, so that's the way I've always been. And, I'm not a person, like, people really get mad online, like when you say something or you believe something that they don't believe in. And to me, it's not really worth getting riled up over stuff like that. It's like, all right, I'm cool. Take whatever that was useful and then keep it moving. So lastly, talking about legacy, how would you like to be remembered when this is all said and done?
He was a good guy. I just believe, again, our character, and Jesus was a person of so much love that what he went through, we still remember him now. You know what I'm saying? And we remember him by the Spirit, even though we're not present with him, or wasn't present with him when it was an earthly walk. I just want to be known as a good guy, and I hear it now. I hear people like, you just. I see people putting posts on Facebook, a lot of other preachers are like, Wiley's just a good guy, no ill intentions, no undercurrent issues, no, none of that stuff. But I do believe that God has much, much, much more for me. But I don't feel, and the Bible talks about debating and all that kind of stuff, like you were just saying. People get mad a lot of times because of what we've been taught. And we've been taught that what we say is always right. And I always say this because as a preacher, we don't always know everything. Everything we say is not always right. You know what I'm saying? We have to be willing to learn. We have to be willing to like I said earlier, take a piece and just hear out. Being able to blend, being able to, I ain't say compromise, being able to blend on all arenas. On all arenas. I've had people on all arenas, all religions, all walks of life come to say, you know, that was really powerful. You know what I'm saying? Instead of, and you said earlier about the rapping, instead of targeting a certain area, you know what I'm saying, and just making it seem like, you know, I'm just down and dirty, and, you know, even though I may be, but you don't have to tell me that. You don't have to be like, you know what I'm saying? I already know where I'm at. People now in this era, they want to know, how can you get me to where I need to go? And it's sad to say most of us don't have the answer to that. How can you, okay, I know I'm a this, I'm a that. And I do this in church. I'm just cutting edge. I'm sorry. It's just, I always say, I get the group and I say, all ex-drinkers or whatever, all ex-smokers, get up. And I make them stand up, you know. And I call groups of everything, fighters, cursors. I said, all ex. I said, some of you still dealing with it, stand up, you know. And I when I do that, I said, now look around and tell somebody we all got issues. Everybody in here is an ex something. You see what I'm saying? So what that does is it creates the atmosphere for those. I just experienced this in Delaware last week. And what it does is it helps the people to accept our witness now. That I'm not just sitting in the church and the preacher throwing me in hell. I already know I'm going to hell. I already know all of this. Show me how I can get to where I need to go. You show me. You see, so it starts off by breaking the ice to let them know you're not the only one that's gone through what you're going through. And you're not going through something right now that we're not going through right now. Because there may be people sitting right up in church doing the same thing you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So it comes with having the anointing, the strategy, the know-how to be able to reach in and draw. That's what Jesus did. I always use Jesus as an example. I said, Jesus never had a church. You can't show me the Bible. Jesus never had one. He was always chilling with his posse. He's chilling, got on his sandals. Yeah, he was in the streets. He just pop up like, yo, where you come from, man? Yo, we ran out of wine. Yo, where the water at? You know, stuck his finger, keep the party going. I'm out. You know what I'm saying? I said, people have put Jesus on such a level to where people are afraid, and God does not want us to be afraid to love him. You know what I'm saying? He don't want people to be afraid, you know, to love who he is. So I said Jesus was always chilling, always rolling with his boys. He didn't even have a church. He just popped up on the scene. When you look, and he's there. You know, one of the things in the Bible, one of the stories in the Bible, they was in a cave, and Jesus had got us already killed, and they buried him. When he came back, he saw his mama and all that. And he said, don't touch me because I'm not ascended. But then he was looking for his disciples. And the Bible says, and they was in a cave with a closed door. And he said, Jesus came through the door. He didn't open the door. He just came through the door and appeared. And he was like, oh, where you come from? You were supposed to be dead. And he was like, you know, so I just look at stories of the Bible. It just intrigues me because I put it to now, and I bring it to nowadays. You know, I teach by demonstration. Even when I'm preaching, I always do demonstration. If I'm doing 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread, trust me, I'm going to have 2 fish, 5 loaves of bread, transformation, going to the door, all that performance, bring it back with trays of catfish sandwiches for everybody in the whole church. You know what I'm saying? And people like, oh my God. I said, because that's how he taught, by example, and he taught by demonstration. People believe by his demonstration. So whatever I'm teaching, you can bet your bottom dollar I'm going to have some kind of demonstration to let even kids, like they sitting there like, a 9-year-old told me the other month, yo, I really enjoyed you. I'm like, what you enjoyed? You 9. He said, no. He said, I didn't even play on with them game things they have. He said, I didn't even play on it the whole time. That's how he said it to me. He said, I didn't play on it. He said, I could tell you the whole sermon.
Because he was engaged.
Yeah. I'm 9. I said, how old are you? He said, I'm 9. He said, but I enjoyed I enjoyed you. I said, wow. I'm looking at him like, man, you know, I said, I'm going to bless you for paying attention. You know what I'm saying? Well, yeah, here you go. Go get you some McDonald's.
You know, those are a really critical. That's a really critical age because when I was 9, I was in Germany, and the reason why, you know, we talked about, you know, past experiences making you who you are today. You know, the military and, you know, military brat, that basically molded me as a person. You know, because I'm from a neighborhood in Indianapolis that still to this day is murders all the time. It's a very bad neighborhood. And my mother joined the military. She had me at 16. She joined the military when I was 3 years old. I stayed in Indianapolis until 6. So after she got back from her first duty station, she took me and we moved to Alabama. And then after that, we probably stayed in Alabama for 2 years. Then we went to Germany. So the thing was, you know, I got out of the neighborhood because even back then, like I was bad. Like I had to go see a psychiatrist and all kind of stuff because I was just, you know, I was wild and I was. She couldn't control me. I don't know if it's because she took me from my grandmother, you know, my environment, or what was going on, but it was like I couldn't control myself. So being taken into a whole nother country. You're getting to see people from all over the world. You're meeting people all the time. You're getting to see how other people live. You know, we did a lot of traveling to France and, you know, things like that while I was over there.
Wow.
And then every time I would come back to grandma's, some of the same friends that I had was still doing the exact same things before when I left. So that kind of showed me that the world is much bigger than the neighborhood and people live different lives all over. You know, so that's why I'm able to take in that information and not necessarily feel like you got to believe what I believe because the German man that I lived across the street from, you know, his religion and his, you know, whole philosophy of life is a whole different than what we were. But I talked to him every day, even though I couldn't, you know, I couldn't understand everything he said, but I would come over to the house and he was a farmer. He was an old man. Farmer lived with his wife and they didn't have any children, you know, that were around. But we communicated. Like we played charades because we couldn't understand each other fully. But he would pick strawberries and, you know, he would fix things for me, my bike and things of that nature. So I just always have been open because of that in particular. And I think everybody needs to go see something other than what they're used to.
That's right.
And that's what will help.
And my thing is, who knows what would have happened to you? Right. And I say that, and I say what you went through was for your witness. You know what I'm saying? So who would I can use me because even I tell it in the book. When I was 16, I found out I was adopted. So I was able to go back to my aunt because my adopted family told me how the whole situation went. So my adopted dad's aunt, I went to her, and it was amazing because when I got to her house, the caretaker, they told me she had just had a major stroke. But she didn't remember nothing. She wasn't talking. But when I walked in the door, she remembered who I was and was able to have a full conversation with me. And when I sat down and I said to her, I said, I want to know about my life. You know, and she was laying on her bed. She was in her bed and she was able to recap everything and told me the whole story, how it all transitioned, how everything she knew, how old I was. And they was looking at her like, this woman ain't been saying nothing. You know, so she was able to tell me the full story before she passed. And then she passed like the month after that. But I do believe that my whole, and like I said, I tell it in the book, through the whole transition, I would always ask, where would I have wound up? You know, if that transition in my life had not happened, where would I be? You know what I'm saying? I don't even know. I don't, like you said, everything you went through helped for your experience to now. You may not have not understood it then, but now you understand it now. So my thing is, we go through things to help, um, I, and it's more effective. Let me say this: when you're talking to somebody, and be like, "I know what you're going through." You know what I'm saying? People can hear you, but when you say that one on one, yo, I know what you, man. I feel you. I know what you're talking about because when they hear your story and they hear what you going through, they're like, "Oh, wow, man, I would never look at you, Todd. Figure you over in Germany and all that stuff, you know, and you're able to effectively tell me how to survive out of an environment that I should have died in." You know what I'm saying? So it helps you to witness, in order to pull people in from where you've gone at a young age, but you still was there.
And my memory is very good. So
yes.
it's like, you know, I always say, you know, had I not been taken by my mom, you know, and moved out, you know, I could be a completely different person today, or I may not even be here at 35 years old. I'm an OG. People was calling me an OG when I was 30. It's like, you know, I've never liked that because I feel like our life expectancy shouldn't be so low. You know? So I'm not an OG at 30 years old. You know, call me an OG at 70. You know what I'm saying? Something like that. You know, so. But lastly, you know, how can people get your book? How can they find you on social media, websites, anything like that?
Well, the book is, like I said, it's the 10th anniversary edition that's coming out. Right now, you can reach me at Wesley Wiley on Facebook. Inbox me, pre-order. And you can also go to Bishop Wiley on Twitter. Of course, Ty, I'm getting up to date with all this, you know, social media. I'm 50, so I'm trying to remain, I say, relevant. And so I have to call my sons and, Pop, now this is Instagram, this is Snapchat, you know. So on Instagram, it's again Wes J Wiley. And then also right now on with my Wes J Wiley at iCloud. Everything with the website is being updated for pre-orders and those that are interested in putting in their orders. But it's going to be good. I got a good person that's going to be doing the forward on it this edition. You know, a lot of tweaks and stuff because it's 10 years old. So it's a lot of, you know, different tweaks, but it's still up to date. I made it on broken pieces.
All right. Well, you know, once again, I appreciate you coming by. You know, very, very dope conversation, man. I have to put it up there. You know, it's a good one. You know, it's a really good one. And I look forward for people to see it. Look forward to your book coming out and the release of this next issue. And much love and success to you, man. And once again, this is 24/7 Magazine.
Thank you, man.